Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please join us for Jaradhamata prayers. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari, Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari, Yashodanandana Vrajana Ranjana, Yashodanandana Vrajana Ranjana, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari, Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari, Yashodanandana Vrajana Ranjana, Yashodanandana Vrajana Ranjana, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jai Radha Madhava Kunj Bihari, Jai Radha Madhava Kunj Bihari. हरे कृष्णा डियर डिवोटीज, आप सबका स्वागत है आज की श्रीमद् भागवतम क्लास में। आप सबका अभिनंदन है, वेलकम। हरे कृष्णा देवी।
हरे कृष्णा डियर व्यूअर्स, आप सभी का बहुत बहुत स्वागत है आज की जो श्रीमद् भागवतम क्लास है, जिसमें प्रभु जी हमारे साथ शेयर करने वाले हैं श्रीमद् भागवतम कैंटो 4 चैप्टर 21, जिसमें है बहुत ही ब्यूटीफुल भगवत कथा, important lessons for especially us people of the Kali age times। प्रभु जी हमें रिलेट करते हुए बताते हुए चलेंगे कैसे हम शास्त्रों की टीचिंग से इस कली एज के टाइम्स में हम प्रैक्टिकली अप्लाई कर सकते हैं लेसन्स। यहाँ पर मेंशन्ड है इंस्ट्रक्शंस बाय महाराज पृथु। सो प्रभु जी, इन द बिगिनिंग लाइक वी ऑलवेज डू, लेट अस ऑफर द प्रेयर्स।
हरे कृष्णा, प्लीज जॉइन अस फॉर मंगलाचरण प्रेयर्स। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय, ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय, ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं, देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। श्रवतां स्वकथा कृष्ण पुण्यश्रवण कीर्तनः, हृदयन्तस्तो ह्यभद्राणि विधुनोति सुहसतां। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया, भगवतिरुत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी। Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please join us in the recitation of the first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 21. So, Devi, have you placed the link in the chat?
Yes, Prabhuji, I
Hare Krishna.
have just now shared the link.
Hare Krishna. So please join us in the recitation of the first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 21. And the title of the chapter is Instructions by Pṛthu Mahārāja. So again, Mahārāja Pṛthu, he is giving us some important instructions that are being discussed in this chapter. So again, please join us in the recitation of the verse. मैत्रेय उवाच मौक्तिकः कुसुम स्रग्भिर्दुकुलः स्वर्णतोरणः, महासुरभिर्धूपैर्मण्डितं तत्र तत्र वै। Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The great sage Maitreya told Vidura, when the king entered his village, it was very beautifully decorated to receive him with pearls, flower garlands, beautiful cloth, and golden gates, and the entire city was perfumed with highly fragrant incense. And there is a beautiful purport which identifies where Srila Prabhupada his purport is revealing this for our benefit. Real opulence is supplied by natural gifts such as gold, silver, pearls, valuable stones, fresh flowers, trees, and silken cloth. Thus the Vedic civilization recommends opulence and decoration with these natural gifts of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Such opulence immediately changes the condition of the mind and the entire atmosphere becomes spiritualized. King Pṛthu's capital was decorated with such highly opulent decorations. Hare Krishna, please join us for Guru Prati. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatya Deshtarine Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Mukham karoti vachalam pangun langhayate girim yat kripa tadaham vande Shri Gurum Deenataranam. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So here Mahārāja Pṛthu is returning from the sacrificial arena and he is coming to his capital. In this particular chapter, the location of his capital is said to be between Ganga and Yamuna, right? So today we are going to discuss a very important aspect, that in this Kali age, Kali Yug mein, the greatest benediction, jo vardhan hai, benediction hai, that is the Maha Mantra, right? Chanting of the holy name. And just by taking to the chanting of the holy name, all kind of disturbances, all kind of anarthas, all kind of avidya, which is ignorance, as well as aparas, all kind of offenses, even the tendency to perform offenses are driven away. And especially when Kirtan is going on, Srila Prabhupada used to say, those who clap, they are, with the clap, when they sound, the birds fly away. So all these anarthas are like these birds, they fly away. And we become free of the anarthas. And when we dance, the sun arises of the holy name in our heart. And Lord, He is, visible to the devotees. So from that perspective, we are today focusing on this particular chapter as how simple living, higher thinking. This is the message that Pṛthu Mahārāja is revealing, that what is the highest principle that we should be living by, He is revealing in His instructions. And there are two ways you can follow someone, right? Either you can imitate them, that is anukaran, and another one is by taking shelter of their instructions, anusharan. So those who want to follow Pṛthu Mahārāja, they need to know what are the instructions of Pṛthu Mahārāja, because imitation is not very good. Imitation shows, yes, you like the person, but it's not a good example. जबकि हम किसी के instructions को follow करते हैं, उनको, not just glorification of the personalities based on their characteristics, but also how this person is leading such a wonderful life. By following those principles, by following the instructions coming from that person, he is revealing. So Pṛthu Mahārāja in this chapter is revealing those instructions as how he is leading his life, so that we can take those instructions to our heart and make our life blissful. And today, earlier, there was too many important questions were raised, like what is the significance of Bhagavad Gita, SRIMADBHAGAVATAM, and all these scriptures when the Vedas were there, right? When Upanishads are there and so many other aspects. So again, from that perspective, I just want to identify the glories of, chanting of the holy name. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna himself is revealing, Mahārshīnām bhraguraham giram asmi ekam aksharam yajnanam japa yajna asmi stavaranam himalaya. So in the 10th chapter, 25th verse he's revealing. So the 10th chapter is opulence of the absolute. He's saying, of all the great sages, I am Bhrigu. Bhrigu Muni lives on Mahārāja, right? And he's constantly engaged in sacrifices, various kind of, yajna, so again, fire sacrifices. And his descendants, they are also expert in performing sacrifices, and Shukracharya is his descendant as well. So, and of all the vibrations, Lord is saying, I am the transcendental Om, Pranava Sarva Vedeshu. That's another reference he gives in Bhagavad Gita, that the transcendental vibration Om is representation, is an expansion of Lord. And of all sacrifices, so when he's listing, of these categories, he's listing what is the best. And of all kind of sacrifices, he's revealing, I am the chanting of the holy name, Japa. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And of all immovable things on the Himalayas. So the importance is the chanting of the holy name. It is the best yajna in all ages, and especially in this Kali age, because there is not enough qualification or facilities to perform other kind of yajnas, and just by chanting of the holy name can deliver us from this material life and places us in the transcendental realm. Now, another question that can be raised is, why is Srimad Bhagavatam written, right? And we covered this in the first canto, where after having written all the Vedas, even Srila Vyasadeva, Shri Krishna Dvaipanya Vyasadeva, he was not very much satisfied in his heart. And at that time, Devashi Narad appeared and he said, yes, what is the shortcoming? Why you are not satisfied? Because, by writing Vedas, you have encouraged people to engage in Karma Kanda. And then more, after that is Jnana Kanda. But there is very little on Upasana or Bhakti Yoga Upasana Kanda. So again, you have to glorify that aspect. And then he imparted and revealed Srimad Bhagavatam to Srila Vyasadeva. And Srila Vyasadeva at that time wrote Srimad Bhagavatam. Sometimes people say, well, that was written 5,000 years back. How could it be valid for this age? So again, in this reference in Srimad Bhagavatam, Sutta Goswami is revealing, as he heard from Shukdev Goswami, Anato Pashpam Sakshat Bhakti Yoga Madokshaje Lokasya Jananto Vidvam Chakre Satvata Samhitam. So Anartha Pashpam Sakshat. Anartha means things that do not have value. Anartha. Artha means value. Ana refers to not having any value in our life. Right? And to Anartha Pashpam. So Upashmam refers to mitigate. How do you mitigate these superfluous things? Right? Directly. So how can we directly mitigate all these things? By taking to Bhakti Yoga, by taking to the devotional service, which simply starts with the chanting of the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Because Hare Krishna Mahamantra is our call to the Lord, our cry to the Lord. We are begging for Lord's mercy so that we can get engagement in devotional service. So that is the true essence that we are looking for. And people in this current age, general mass of people, lokasya jananto. So people are not aware of these facts. So that's why, Vidvam, the supreme learned personality, who is this? Srila Vyasadeva. He compiled Chakra. And what did he compile? Sattva, in relation with the supreme truth, the supreme personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna, Samhitam, this Vedic literature. So the material miseries of the living entity, which are superfluous to him, right? So for us, we may not be able to understand the true aspects as how to get rid of all these anarthas, kam, krodh, lobh, moh, mad, matsara, all this lust, anger, greed, pride, envy, and delusion. So how can they be mitigated? Just by the linking process of devotional service. And the prayer is important. How do we get devotional service? It's through the chanting of the holy name. It's a prayer. So we have to take to those two principles, surrender and prayer. Or in other words, we can say we have to engage in devotional service as an endeavor and then invoke and ask for the mercy of the Lord in the form of prayers. So if you look at it, these two principles are going hand in hand all the time. But the mass of people in this Kali age especially do not know this, and therefore the learned Vyasadeva, he compiled this Vedic literature, Srimad Bhagavatam, which is in relation to the supreme truth, the supreme personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna, and his devotees. So again, that is the essence that is being revealed. Now, it is very important that natural things should be used in this particular purport, as it is revealed by Srila Prabhupada that Mahārāja Pṛthu, he was returning from the sacrificial arena to his capital. And so citizens, knowing that Lord Vishnu himself appeared at the sacrificial arena, and Indradev asked for forgiveness from Pṛthu Mahārāja, and even Lord Brahma, gave instructions to Pṛthu Mahārāja, which Pṛthu Mahārāja took to his heart, and he sought to satisfy the supreme personality of Godhead and agreed to that instruction, and not went with his own desire to perform the 100 yajna. And so he's more glorious than Indra, who performed 100 yajnas but could not win over his heart, could not win over his mind, while Pṛthu Mahārāja showed the true symptoms of surrender. So to such a glorious magnanimous Chakravarti Mahārāja is coming, so they are welcoming him with the natural gifts. That is important. And His Holiness Achyutanand Maharaj, in his book, The Blazing Sadhus, he is revealing that India, even today, means in the current times, as we can see, has a perfect recycling system. What is that recycling system? In India, in South, we see that people, they eat on banana leaves, right? And in North India, many times people, they, they use the plates and the balls made up of leaves. And by doing that, they are engaging in perfect recycling system. Otherwise, we already know that plastics and various kind of paper material, when mixed with wax and other things, becomes unrecyclable, which means it cannot be recycled. While the leaves, the people would use the plates and balls made up of leaves. After eating, they would just put it for recycling, and it would easily be recycled. So India had a perfect ecologically stable system, yet at the same time, the Western influence has caused people to deviate away from that, and people are using plates made up of paper, paper plates and plastic glasses. And Srila Prabhupada, at one occasion, he's pointing to these things and he's saying, this is your advancement. In the old times, people used to have silver and golden plates and bowls, and they would use silver spoons and golden spoons to kind of like natural substances. लेकिन आज के समय पे इंस्टेड ऑफ स्वर्ण सोने की चीज़ें और चांदी की चीज़ें और जो सिंपली रिसाइकलेबल चीज़ें यूज़ करते थे, उनको रिप्लेस कर रहे हैं विथ ऑल दिस प्लास्टिक इक्विपमेंट्स एंड प्लास्टिक थिंग्स. Aluminum utensils, now you see the market is flooded with this aluminum based cookware, and they don't realize that actually it releases poisonous effect which is cancerous to people's health. So that people are getting various kind of diseases. Just to save little money, they are going to buy this cheap material, aluminum based utensils, and lose their life. And His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj, what does he say? That if you lose your wealth, you lost nothing. If you lose your health, you lost something. But if you lost your path, to the devotion, to your spiritual advancement, then you lost everything. And that is the essential principle that we should be focusing in our life for devotional service. And this is the main message of Pṛthu Mahārāja, as we'll be seeing. So here in this particular chapter, as is being revealed, that, in India, this recycling program was very well done. Srila Prabhupada in his purpose revealed that even, with that Vedic civilization, whatever was the tradition, people are getting diverted from that, and they are, going in the direction of the Western world. Instead of giving direction to the Western world, how to have a self-sustained, nation. Even during the time of Lahat Bahadur Shastri, Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan, that was an initiative taken to make India self-sustaining. But then, as we have seen over the decades, that important initiative was lost. And these two, the Jawan as well as Kisan, means these two groups were completely ignored. And here, Maharaj Pṛthu is identifying the importance of these principles based on how do we engage in devotional service while performing our activities, our due activities, so that working together in a collaborative manner, we can be perfect in whatever we do, and ultimately to satisfy the Lord. That should be the purpose, that should be the goal behind all these activities. So here the streets were decorated with fruits, unbroken fruits and branches, like the banana branches, tree branches and so forth. And this is seen that even in Jewish and Christian heritages, they used to decorate streets with fruits and branches. So of course, Pṛthu Maharaj, he was the emperor of the world. So the tradition that was there is still preserved, even though people may have taken to different religion. But dharma is more inherent, and the traditions from those times are still seen. Today we see banners and festoons made up of paper and all that. In the old times, they used to be like banners and festoons, made up of, you would see instead of those triangle paper, they used to have mango leaves. Very auspicious sign. And it was easy to recycle those. And the streets used to be sprinkled with, rice, turmerics, and, these kind of fragrant, uh, uh, basically perfumes made from natural things like rose petals and so forth. That used to be the case. Now that particular aspect is gone, and if you by chance visit some of the places like Calcutta and Bombay, then you are actually feeling disgusted because of all the bad smell, that comes out. So again, from the streets and all over the place, and people just have their windows up, so and they perfume the cars inside, but the whole streets are filled with all kind of filthy smells. So we have to be careful that we are not just looking to feel good external, just around us, but also having that environment all around so that everyone is feeling blissful. That needs important collaboration and important initiatives. And so there is another example. So when Maharaj Pṛthu was coming in, people were, worshipping him with lamps, with aguru, dhoop, and so forth. And they were showering flower petals. Now, the Western world, somewhere down the line in 1975, this was replaced by Italian businessman Enrico Mangili. He developed the first paper confetti for use in a Milan parade in 1975. So how did he do that? He did so by gathering the punched out pieces of paper. These are the leftovers from silkworm bedding devices. So he collected all this and he said to people, like, as the parade will be going, so why don't you throw it out of your windows on top of the parade? And it would be very nice because this is like glittering paper that will look very nice. And it will give a very amazing feeling to people who are going there compared to other things that are thrown onto the parades in those times. So this new paper confetti was much cheaper and safer than other objects tossed in Milan parades in the past, but was hard to recycle and it actually created quite a menace over a period of time. Similarly, today we see plastic is very useful material, but when used improperly, causes a lot of pollution, not just on the land but also in the sea. And we have seen so many initiatives, so much of the aquatic life is impacted, adversely affected by such plastic being disposed in the sea. So, and the welcoming used to be with the flowers, with lamps and yogurts. So yogurt, turmeric, kumkuma, these were the things which were being used to anoint someone and welcome them, right? Now today, if we see how has this been replaced, because people do not know these principles, they are replacing it with selfies, right? They immediately take out the cameras, they start flashing, and the phone lights keep going on, right? Instead of honoring today, honoring a person of importance, they are focusing on the shallow that I was there. See, there is a selfie to prove me that the person is behind me. Sometimes we even see that people, when they go to Jagannath Yatratha, they are taking the selfie with Lord Jagannath Subhadra Baldev behind their back. Now, without realizing that actually in this process they are committing an offense. We are not supposed to ever show your back to the Lordship. That is the reason we are in this material world, right? We became Bahirmukha. We turned our back to the Lordship, and that's why we are suffering in this material world. Why would you like to continue that behavior, that offensive behavior? And so we should be very much understanding this. And that's why Srila Vyasadeva, he wrote SRIMADBHAGAVATAM so that we can understand the essential principles and the details as how to follow those principles. And on top of that, we have acharyas in disciplic succession, spiritual masters who help us understand this aspect. So Srila Prabhupada, he himself said, never show your back to the deities. You should always be honoring, especially during Aarti. You should be standing and then, focusing on the Aarti, seeing how Lord is being glorified. So the focus should not be, just because there is another devotee who has come. You can simply bow your hand and focus back on Aarti. So that way the person is not neglected, but the focus still is on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yes. So we have to be always understanding. So we talked about Namaruchi, right? The importance of the chanting of the holy name. We also talked about Vaishnava Seva. Again, we have to follow the instruction of the spiritual masters. And here, great instructions are coming directly from Mahārāja Pṛthu. That we have to understand so that we can follow them, in essence. And graffiti kind of effects, now people are writing things on the wall. Well, if you're writing Mahamantra and Vedic inscriptions, they are glorious. But a graffiti is like replacing the rangoli and other features, which is like someone is telling a story and mostly telling bad stories or doing vandalism on properties. Those kind of things, they are very bad. So this is where people need education. And so to have the proper education, one has to take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master. And the only purpose of a bona fide spiritual master is to deliver the disciple from this material life, to help the disciple from wherever the disciple is, which actually reminds me of a very interesting scenario. So this is a story my father used to share with us, brothers and sisters, all my brothers and sisters. We would sit as a family and he would share this. So once there was Sadhu along with his disciples. He was going from village to village giving pravachan. So he comes to a village and he says, "You should never lie." So the person says, "Give us an example," from the audience. And then he says, if something is not true and you speak that, then the person says, "But why would you lie?" So he says, "Of course, when you want to take advantage of another person, when you want to hoard someone's wealth, when you want to become rich, when you have so many, karmic desires, then, desire to enjoy your senses, sense gratification, to have better facilities. If you're looking for that, people sometimes lie. So you should never lie, right? And then you should never try to cheat other person. And you should never try to encroach others' properties just so that you can enjoy well." So after finishing his brimstone speech, he said, "Any question or any comments?" So an old person, he raised his hand. He was very happy to see that an elderly person in the village, sometimes the rich elderly person of the village, they would be sitting in there. So one of those persons had raised his hand. Also the sage, he said, "Yes, please share." So the person, he got up and he said, the old man, he said, "We never knew that we could lie to take advantage of another person. We never knew that we could cheat to take someone else's property so we can enjoy more. We never knew that sense gratification can be increased or fully satisfied without having to perform any austerity by using all these processes." It was the wrong message went on, right? In this particular case, instead of telling them how to become better, by talking about general, this is like a machine gun effect. He's trying to just shoot all kind of messages to the crowd without realizing where the crowd is. So we have to be very, very careful to understand where the crowd is so that they understand what is of essence. That's why, one of the important aspects is that my father taught me is start with the good principle that needs to be followed. And what needs to be avoided, what are the roadblocks to this principle. And the focus should be there. So just like this sadhu did at the village, telling that, there is constantly, this material world is dukhalayam shashvatam. Everyone is busy in kam, krodh, lo, moh, matsara. Lust, anger, greed, pride, envy, and delusion. Instead of that, if the focus is, why should we not do that? Why are we suffering in this material world? What is the purpose of this life? We start from there, then everything becomes easier to understand. So similarly, we have to understand that Jivera Surupoya Krishna Nityadas, our true nature is, our true dharma is, we are eternal servant of Lord Shri Krishna. From that perspective, we have to engage in pleasing Lord Shri Krishna, we understand that. And to please Lord Shri Krishna, we have to take to devotional service. That is an essential, direction we have to take. And to get devotional service, we have to take to the chanting of the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. But when we are trying to pray, when we are trying to surrender, there are various anarthas, anarthopashma. So we have to mitigate all these anarthas. How do we mitigate these anarthas? Is through the chanting of the holy name, through Vaishnava Seva, through Sadhu Sangha. Association defines who we are. So we have to take to, association of devotees who are engaged in devotion service. Army men, they stick together because they have a common motive. People who are doing cycling and other kind of activities, they stay with people who are doing those kind of activities. Similarly, we as devotees should be in the association of devotees so that we can continue to progress further in our devotional service and stay motivated. Utsahan nishayadharya tat tat karma pravartanat sangatyaga sato vritte sadbhir bhakti prasiddhati. Utsahan, with great enthusiasm, nishayat, with great determination, dhairyat, with patience, tat tat karma pravartanat, following in the 9 process of devotional service as Prahlad Mahārāja reveals, and then next to reading and writing is revealed by Shukdev Goswami in the 11th canto. And sangatyagat. So sangatyagat is asat sangatyag, to give up the association of materialists who are engaged in sense gratification, running after name, fame and glories, wine and women. And sato vritti, and following in the footsteps of acharyas, right? Footsteps of great personalities like Pṛthu Mahārāja in this particular chapter, as we are continuing to read. And here, various auspicious signs how someone is welcomed is identified. Now, one of the important aspects that was identified is that Pṛthu Mahārāja, when he came, he was welcomed and worshipped by unmarried girls. So unmarried girls in those times were auspicious. So when father would go out for work, a daughter who's unmarried, it would be very auspicious when leaving the house if the daughter is carrying a filled pot, right? For father to see her face and a filled pot of water, and that way, he would have very successful day. And when he comes back, he again sees the water with a filled pot in her hand, or something like arti plate or something. It would be very auspicious. So many times when merchants, they would go out of the house for months, they would see this for the success. So it became like a ritual, with the sense that yes, it is very auspicious sign to see an unmarried girl, one who has not been touched by the opposite sex. So this is also a very important aspect, right? And now sometimes people say, okay, if this is auspicious, then what is inauspicious? Seeing a garbage bag is inauspicious, just as an example. Seeing someone, who is, saying showing very negative attitude is a bad thing. So various inauspicious things. But always keeping the positive energy around you enables you to be surcharged with that positive energy. What is around you will surcharge you. So that's why devotee association surcharges the devotees to engage in devotional service. And women, they played a very important role, even during the Vedic times and even today. Means they play a very important role. They are protected in Vedic times. And so the secret is revealed in this description that matrimony is revealing to Mahatma Vidur, is that an auspicious source of energy to man is women. After every successful man, there is a woman, right? And then people sometimes joke that after every unsuccessful man, there may be 2, 3 or more women. So again, that's because that person is running after name, fame and glories, wine and women. So that is where we have to keep ourselves cleansed inside and outside. Outside we can clean by just taking bath and keeping a hygienic condition. But inside our cleanliness happens through the chanting of the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So even today when someone is welcome, we see people, they are going out with, band baja, like all this great procession to welcome them with flowers and they worship and to welcome in India. That tradition is still there in India. When, a relative comes after many years, or if a son is returning home after finishing his studies, parents, they go to the station and welcome them. And even sometimes important persons, an administrator comes or a saint comes, people, they go out with garlands in their hands to welcome. And that is a true way of welcoming someone with inspiration to please the person. And however, we also see that it is also getting lost with time, right? So we have to, the responsibility is on us to keep these important rituals alive, important practices alive, so that people can understand that it is such a perfect recycling program. And on top of that, it surcharges the person who's coming in with positive energy, with welcoming hearts and with welcoming hands. They're greeted in this way. Don't point to others, and because the charity begins at home, so it all starts with us. Instead of saying they did not welcome this way, they did not welcome this way, we have to treat others as we want to be treated. So this is there, and reciprocation with Vedic mantras, blessings, prayers, sweet words, they are the proper exchange in a welcome ceremony. So even though King Pṛthu, Maharaj Pṛthu was welcomed in this manner, he remained unaffected even with such an opulent welcome. So this is also very important aspect. Why did he remain unaffected? Because he was not becoming proud due to the various effects. He was not becoming proud. That was an important aspect. Hare Krishna.
You continue, I'll bring it from back.
Yeah. Hare Krishna. Sorry for that. So even Maharaj Pṛthu, he was not at all affected. He did not become proud. That is an important aspect. So he remained unaffected. It means that he definitely smiled. He welcomed everyone. He was reciprocating with them. Yet at the same time, he did not become proud. He did not hoard any of the anarthas, that I am the emperor of this world, I am so and so. He was not looking at the bodily level. He was on the spiritual platform, on a transcendental platform. So Srila Prabhupada, he reveals that just like a tree branch is when it's filled with fruits and flowers, bends due to the weight, and that is the greatness, right? So similarly, Pṛthu Maharaj was very grateful, was very magnanimous in his behavior and very reciprocative in his behavior. He was not like, standing erect and saying, yes, I am the one who will punish you if you don't welcome me nicely. He was not showing that. He was rather showing by his behavior that how much he is reciprocating. And that is a true, behavior we see in an administrator, in a saintly person, and in devotees, that they, engage with that reciprocation in a positive manner. So a responsible monarchy, Srila Prabhupada is revealing an important lesson, is better than so-called democratic government. Now why did Srila Prabhupada say so-called democratic government? Because even though the government is supposed to be of the people, for the people, by the people, we have seen, India is one of the biggest democratic country, and there is a lot that goes on under the, currents of democracy, which are not very much democratic in nature. They still, there are some people who are just looking for name, fame, and glories, and they don't do proper dealings. So again, that's why it is so called democratic, right? Because true democracy is only valid when people are spiritually enlightened, people are engaged in pleasing Lord Shri Krishna, and that is the important message that Pṛthu Maharaj covers in this chapter. And in India, we see that every city or town, you find someone saying that they are God, right? So again, those kind of practices were there in Srila Prabhupada revealed in his times also. There were so many gods, imitating incarnations, showing people that they are the incarnation of the Lord, or they are the Supreme Personality of God in themselves. These kind of bad practices or imitations were going on. And even Lord Krishna's time, there was a false Vasudeva, right? So we heard about that also. So this anarthas, when encroach on someone's mind and they hoard onto the very being, pulls a person down and pulls everyone who follows them as well. So again, when somebody does an action, a sinful action, the person, the doer is punished, the person who is directing it is punished, as the person who is supporting it is punished. So any offense or sinful action, all three personalities are punished. But it doesn't mean that they're punished 1/3, right? All these three categories are given, no, they are given the full punishment for having committed that crime. So that is also very much important for us to understand, that we should be keeping our behavior proper, as well as encouraging others to keep a proper behavior, discourage any improper behavior, and as well as continue to follow in the footsteps of acharyas. And I remember that in 2006, during a New Jersey visit, we were told that such and such man has become a yogi and he can raise his body in the air. So again, at that time, my question was, so what is the benefit of lifting the body in the air? Can he just fly from one city to another? They said, no. He can only just lift himself on the air. He cannot move his body around. So, okay, so he still has to take the airplane to fly. What is the advantage of having taken this yogic capability? No answer, right? So this is done only for cheap adoration and useless labor, right? And just to get name, fame, and glory was there. So these are the today's role models. Sometimes, they are there just to bewilder the innocent public. People who are very innocent, people who don't understand, they get mesmerized by these. Oh, such a person. But what is the use of this? Is the person able to fly, back home, back to Godhead? No. So such a person, by becoming a role model, is going to hellish condition, and he is taking all his supporters, all his followers. Right? That's like killing people in real life and getting sympathy, showing imaginative stories on the silver screen. That's another example that we see that many people, they become fan of some movie star or actress, and in real life, these stars and actors, they are doing all kind of abominable activities, but on the silver screen, they are showing themselves to be very ideal. And this is duplicity. And Srila Prabhupada gives a specific name, Pashandi, from that, or Pakhandi, as in North India is a common term. So a king or administrative leader's duty is to engage everyone in their prescribed duty to please Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now this last part, to please Supreme Personality of Godhead, is very important, because the way the Vedic society was established was focused on, pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Chaturvarna Maya Shishtam Guna Karma Vibhagasha. And Lord Krishna reveals that these 4 varnas, Brahma, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra, these varnas were established by him based on guna, right? Based on the nature, right? The impact of the 3 modes of material nature on the body. And karma. Karma is whatever activities they perform. So that is what defines. Srila Prabhupada reveals that actually in current times, people have these various kind of activities. So it is a shilpa. So again, and people are called someone who is an artisan. So his art is called shilpa, and the shilpi is the artisan. So that is what people are doing to sustain themselves, to take on various jobs. And kala shudra sambhava. So again, when people are engaged in serving other living entities, then it is a Shudra's profession. And Srila Prabhupada also reveals a very important aspect, that Brahmanas, they would never take salary. And he gives the example of Chanakya Pandit. Chanakya Pandit was the prime minister, but he still lived in a hut. He never took salary. And his own disciple, Chandragupta Maurya, was the emperor at the time in India, in the Indian region. And at that time, when Chandragupta Maurya on one occasion asked, why did Chanakya take a specific decision? Chanakya Pandit clearly said, if I have to give a reason for my action, then I just quit, because his principles were very clearly set. And here Pṛthu Mahārāja also reveals that the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas are worshipable. So Brahmanas and Vaishnavas never take any salary. Rather, they perform their duties. They, as part of their duty, they teach others of spiritual civilization, keep everyone motivated, spiritualized, so that the whole society goes on a common direction. Lord Krishna, he reveals himself in a universal form. He says, I am the face, right? Head is Brahmanas, the arms are Kshatriyas, the thighs are the Vaishyas, and the legs are the Shudras. So now, if the whole personality is moving, to spiritual realm, does that mean the legs get left behind? No. The Shudras, when satisfying the other 3 varnas, Brahman, Kshatriya, and Vaishya, and these 3 varnas, which are called Dvijas, they go through the samskar, they get second initiation in their specific varna, are able to go back home, back to Godhead, just like everyone else. So, Pṛthu Mahārāja was a Kshatriya, and he discharged his Kshatriya duties perfectly. Similarly, Brahman, Vaishya and Shudras can discharge their respective duties perfectly, and thus at the ultimate end of life, which is end of this body, can be promoted to the transcendental world, to the spiritual realm, go back home, back to Godhead. So this is called, Srila Prabhupada in the Prabhupada is revealing, is called Param Padam, right? It's not heaven, it's not Brahma Jyoti, which is Sayujya, it's a suicide in the terms of, devotees. And also the devotees, they are not looking for other kind of mystic perfections like Salukya, Samipya, Sashti and Sarupya, which is devoid of devotional service. Rather, devotees are seeking personal loving devotional service. And only prayer and aspiration to a devotee is this devotional service. So they are constantly praying Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And so that we can all advance in this right direction, Srila Prabhupada established ISKCON, International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So again, it is very important that it is for Krishna consciousness. Sometimes people say off, and that's like this, it changes the whole meaning, because if you say International Society of Krishna Consciousness, then basically you say that no one else can be Krishna conscious, only this society is. And that would be a big offense, because there are four paramparas: Rudra Sampradaya, Shi Sampradaya, Kumar Sampradaya and Brahma Sampradaya. And ISKCON happens to be in Brahma Sampradaya, one of the societies. So this is also very important to understand. And the society was established so that we can have sadhu sangha, we can engage in Vaishnava seva, and for innocent public we can engage with the compassion, right? Jiva daya. So that's why preaching is very important, sadhu sangha is very important, so that we all stay energized, as well as Vaishnava seva, serving our spiritual masters and elderly advanced devotees is very important. Because we get the blessings and we get the empowerment, mercy of the Lord flows through his devotees. So we always want to serve the Vaishnavas so that we get the mercy. Mercy is also known as prasad, right? Prasad is mercy. So yes, if you want to satisfy your belly, you want to satisfy something that would purify your existence as well. Not just for the palatable taste, but also for purification. And prasad does both the things. So Pṛthu Mahārāja, he was an empowered incarnation, Shaktavesh avatar, as well as a great Vaishnava devotee, right? So now Mahatma Vidur, he makes an inquiry. He worships Maitreya Muni, who is revealing such wonderful instructions to him as how Pṛthu Mahārāja has been welcomed in his capital. And now Mahatma Vidur is saying, I want to hear about him, Pṛthu Mahārāja, who is followed, even whose instructions are even followed by the demigods and kings, even in current age. So even in Dwapar Yuga, at that time. So Pṛthu Mahārāja appeared in Treta Yuga. But even in Dwapar Yuga, there were kings who were following the instructions of Pṛthu Mahārāja. And, following someone, as we talked about, Anukaran and Anusharan, we should follow the instructions. So here we hear the instructions. And one of the important instructions that we also hear is coming from Brahma Samhita. Karmani nirdhati kintu cha bhakti bhajam. For devotees, the results of pious and impious activities, they are nullified by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And many people, they don't take to this instruction, they don't take to devotional service. So Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita also reveals the four kind of people who do not take to who do not surrender to him, who do not, take to devotional life, do not take to devotional service. And what are these kinds? Avajananti mam mudha manushim tanuvashita. So again, many of these times, they're thinking that Lord Krishna is just a manushya, right? And he is, Brahman has taken a material body, while Lord Krishna himself reveals that he is, Maya Adhyakshena Prakriti Suryate Sacharacham. He is saying that this material energy is under my control. And various living entities are, taking on these bodies, the material bodies, and some are char and some are achar. Some are moving and some are non-moving. So here, people misunderstand, some people, that an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be an ordinary man and they mistake the qualities, the great qualities like humility, tolerance, meekness, and simplicity today, and they target, the persons with these qualities with criticism, with degradation, and these are all nothing but Kali effect. And it is very interesting that we covered in first canto that with the coming of Kali age, the first fall down was that of a Brahmana class, right? And today, if we see in India, means the Brahmins, instead of following the Vedic culture, they can't even give up anarthas like drinking tea and coffee, and smoking and so many other abominable things. Now, following four regulative principles and taking to the chanting of the holy name is a simple process. Now, we also have to understand why these four regulative principles are there. These four regulative principles are for our purification because they remove the sinful life, the effect of the sinful life. No meat eating. We don't want to hurt another living entity. So, Jiva Daya, right? But beyond that, Srila Prabhupada reveals that if you have a wealth of holy name and if you don't preach it to others, that's also kind of violence. So, true non-violence is preaching the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead to the innocent public, not to the people who are envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but to innocent public. And also not eating any egg, fish, meat, and so forth. No intoxication, because it actually kills our important brain cells and also does not allow us to engage in devotional service. So again, intoxication is very bad, and it's very interesting. Why would you take toxic things in your body? Because then you have to work on detoxification. This is like punachalvit. It's like a constant cycle going on. People, they put toxic things in, now they're worried about how to get this toxicity out. That's not a sign of an intelligent person, is it? And then we have no gambling. Gambling, we hear about Yudhishthira Mahārāja. He gambled away his whole kingdom, even his own self and his brothers and his wife. So again, gambling is very bad, it's sinful life. Only the administrative class, Kshatriyas, and those also initiated Kshatriyas, right? So they are also Dvijas. So they would engage in, dyuta or in gambling with the purpose of some enjoyment. But even that has to be regulated. And then last but not the least is, illicit, sex, which is, staying within the family life, having a husband and wife relationship and not looking outside the family, rather even as a husband and wife focusing on pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead, considering each other to be a Vaishnava and Vaishnavi, you automatically get devotee association, you automatically get an opportunity for Vaishnava Seva, and when you enable each other, you are also showing Jiva Daya. So the essential charity begins at home. So we have to take this to our heart and understand that this is a way we as a family can advance, and then in a larger concept of a society can help other families also advance in Krishna consciousness. And Srila Prabhupada, he very clearly revealed that one who has come to the level of Brahmana, right? One who has come to the level of Vaishnava is automatically a Brahmana, he says. And those who give education in exchange for monies are not Brahmanas. She said that a Brahmana does not ask for salary for preaching or lecturing. Rather, a Brahmana is requesting, please come, it is for your benefit. So again, this is Jiva Daya principle, but it is also, because it pleases Lord Shri Krishna, the devotees are engaged in preaching activities, in giving lectures and glorifying name form activities, pastimes, and constantly also enables us to remember the wonderful Lord, the Lord who dances and has such wonderful exchange with his devotees. So there was also another principle, same principle with a change of detail. If people would come to the temple, Srila Prabhupada said you should preach and not charge anything, right? But if somebody invites you to speak or should ask you to come to their place, then they should make the arrangements so that you can come to their place, and they should offer something in charity that would be the cause of their further purification. So to cover the travels, the inconvenience, and the time, so in the temple you can always go and just listen and act in devotional service for free. But if you invite the devotees, right, then you should also be ready to offer something in charity which will actually purify you. So here, Srila Prabhupada gives a perfect example, that of Chanakya. And Brahmanas, they don't engage in any kind of job, right, where they get salary. Rather, they perform their duties and ultimately they get charity from others so that they can continue to engage in this fashion. So here, Pṛthu Mahārāja, he is revealing to his citizens an important principle. He is saying that you should all perform in your prescribed duties to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This last purpose is very important, that all activities should be dovetailed to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead and not for our own personal satisfaction. So otherwise, it causes anarthas to get, space or to hold on our mind, and it becomes our spiritual journey very difficult, and rather actually is a great impediment in our spiritual journey. A Shudra accepts pay because he says, I'll serve you if you pay me. If you don't pay me, I won't serve you. So that is the mood of a Shudra. And in the current times, the Shilpas, the artisans, they're basically Shudras. So people who are acting as engineers, I myself was an IT professional, and people who are in the various kind of professions, they're more like Shilpis. They are artists, right? And engineers are just regulated, specific stream-based disciplined artists. But in reality, the Brahmanical culture was based on Brahmanas giving education for free, and in Gurukula people would send their children, and these children, they would go out for bhiksha and to collect bhiksha from various householders in the town or village where this Gurukul used to be, and they would bring it back and give it all to the teacher, that this is the charity we have received. And the Brahmana's wife, Brahmani, she would cook the meal, and then that would be offered and distributed to all the children, all the students, and then the Brahmana would sustain themselves while freely giving education. So they would not ask the parents to give them specific fees, and the parents by their own, at the end of the education, the student would give Guru Dakshina, right? So they would give as a reciprocation of all the wonderful education that they have received. They would, right? So again, and Srila Prabhupada sometimes would be very, strong, and he would say, but one, who's acting in this manner, right, should not at any time accept the profession of a dog. So this is in respect to Brahman. And he's saying that this is appearing in SRIMADBHAGAVATAM. So I looked out for this particular reference. Where is it given? So I went and I found this in SRIMADBHAGAVATAM 7th canto, 11th chapter, where verse 18 through 20 have been translated by Srila Prabhupada, which says, in the time of emergency, one may accept any kind of various types of professions. This is with respect to a Brahman, right? Any types of profession known as Rita, Amrita, Mrita, Paramrita and Satyanrita. But one should not at any time accept the profession of a dog. The profession of Unchilisha, collecting grains from the field, is called Rita. Collecting without begging is called Amrita. Begging grains is called Mrita. Tilling the ground is called Pramrita. And trade is called Satyanrita. So a Brahman or a Vaishnava can take to any of these only in the case of emergency, not for regular livelihood. So while engaging in the service of low-grade persons, however, is called Swavritti, the profession of the dogs. Specifically, Brahmanas and Kshatriyas should not engage in the low and abominable service of, just like that of Shudras, by taking salary for their service. So Brahmanas should be well acquainted with all the Vedic knowledge, and Kshatriyas should be well acquainted with the worship of demigods. And finally, to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So again, this is a very important principle that has been revealed in SRIMADBHAGAVATAM. So we should understand. So Pṛthu Mahārāja, he gives various advices to his citizens, and he was the emperor of the world. Yes. So he's saying, please engage your minds, your words, your bodies, and the result of your occupational duties and being always open-minded, you should all render devotional service to the Lord. And to render all the devotional service to the Lord, we have to first surrender and pray. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Now the further instructions is according to the abilities. So one who is engaging, mind, body and words in devotional service and their prescribed duties. So the prescribed duties and devotional service go hand in hand. Our constitutional position and our, abilities based on the body that we have received. Guna karma, right? And so, in which we are situated, and we should engage the service at the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So everything should be offered for the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead with full confidence and without reservation. And Lord Krishna reveals this to Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita. Yat karoshi yad ashnasi yad juhoshi tadasi yat tapasyasi kanteya tat kurushva madha pranam. Lord Krishna is revealing yat karoshi, whatever you do, all activities, so mind, body and words, those are the three ways we perform activities, should be done. Yadashnasi, whatever you eat, yad juhoshi tadasya, yad tapasyasi kanteya. So again, whatever you give away, so you give away in charity, you offer in sacrifice, whatever austerities you perform, all these should be performed for the satisfaction of Lord Shri Krishna. He himself is revealing in Bhagavad Gita. Mad arpanam should be offered to me, and Lord Krishna is saying so for the pleasure of the Lordship, for the satisfaction of the Lordship. That should be the goal. Now here, as he is giving this instruction, then you will surely be successful in achieving the final objective of your lives. So as an administrator, he is showing that all the kings and all the administrators, all the leaders have this responsibility to reveal what is of benefit to the general populace that they are leading. And it is for their benefit. And now he further reveals that if you would engage in this manner, then when an administrator, he levies taxes on his citizens or, people he takes care of, then at that time, it is for the benefit because he gets the share of their karmas also. And if they are engaged in devotional service, his future is also blessed. While if an administrator does not ask for these things, what happens? The general populace that he is leading is engaged in all kind of irreligious activities. So when he levies the taxes, that is like the 1/6 of whatever that they are earning, then that is also endowed with all the kind of reactions from the activities they engage. Since they are engaging in religious activities, it has sinful reactions, and that would destroy the administrator's present as well as his future. So for the benefit of the future, he is revealing that one should exactly, all the activities should be as per the prescribed duties for the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, avoiding all the anarthas and taking to devotional service. That is a very important aspect. And now he is revealing that why should this be the case? So he goes further in philosophy in identifying that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is all-pervading, and he is also manifested in different types of bodies which arise from a combination of material nature. So he is talking about Vibhindamshas, the Jiva Tattvas, who are expansions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but in this material world takes on body made up of this material energy, the 5 gross elements and 3 subtle elements: earth, water, fire, air, ether, and then mind, intelligence, and false ego. So these are the Ashtada, right? These are the 8 energies, the 8 kind of energies of the material world. So here he gives this example, as Srila Prabhupada says, the example given here is very appropriate. Pṛthu Mahārāja says that this different type of consciousness, they are just developed just like fire, which is basically the same. The principle of the fire is same, that it has heat and it gives light, and it blazes in different ways according to the shape and dimension of firewood. So based on the fuel, the fire manifests differently. So again, this is a very important principle, example given here, because fire is always the same, but according to the size of the fuel, the burning wood, the fire appears to be sometimes straight, sometimes curved, sometimes big, sometimes small, and varying. And Lord Krishna, He is also revealing that as we surrender into Him, He reciprocates accordingly. Ye yata mam prapadyante tans tathaiva bhajamyaham. So, as one surrenders, Lord reciprocates. But full surrender, however, occurs when a man is perfect in knowledge. Bahunam janmanamante jnanvam mam prapadyate. So even a Jnana yogi, after many, many lives, he finally surrenders after Bahunam janmanamante. Vasudeva Sarvamiti Sa Mahatma Sudurlabha. That Lord Vasudeva Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and such a person is a great soul. Sa Mahatma Sudurlabha. Is very difficult to find. So, and then Pṛthu Mahārāja is revealing that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the master and enjoyer of the results of all sacrifices. Bhoktaram Yagatapasam in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna is revealing that, I am the beneficiary of all the sacrifices. And he is also the supreme spiritual master. When he is revealing this, sometimes people say, but there are four varnas, four sampradayas. Well, these sampradayas are coming from Lord Shri Krishna. Lord Shiva gets his, he starts a sampradaya when he receives instruction from Lord Sankarshan. Lord Brahma starts his sampradaya when he gets his instructions from Shirodakshai Vishnu. The goddess of Lakshmi from Garbhodakshai Vishnu, she gets her instructions. And the Chatur Kumaras, the four Kumaras, Sanak, Sanatan, Sananda and Sanat Kumar, they get the instruction from Padmanabha Vishnu when they enter into the Vaikuntha through the 6 gates but are stopped at the 7th gate. So again, the 4 sampradayas are also ultimately coming from Lord Shri Krishna. So he is the supreme spiritual master, and Lord Balaram is said to be Adi Guru because he is showing us how to serve the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, while he was giving instructions to Srila Rupa Goswami, he compared devotional service of the Lord with a creeper, Bhakti Lata, right? Creeper is always looking on its own, it cannot stand. It needs support. So a creeper has a feeble stem and requires the support of a tree or some stable vertical object to grow. And while growing the creeper of devotional service, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has specially stressed on protection from offenses unto the lotus feet of Vaishnava. So again, we should never commit any Vaishnava aprad because aprad means offense, right? And if one commits Vaishnava aprad, all his progress in devotional service will be checked. The most grievous type of Vaishnava aprad is called Gurva aprad, which refers to the offense at the lotus feet of the spiritual master. Guru Avagya. So again, even, not following the instructions of the Guru, denying his instructions is a great offense. And that is the worst offense, not just, from Namaprad, offense to the chanting, to the holy name, but also of great Vaishnava Prad. And further, it is said that protection from avidya, ignorance, anarthas, unwanted things and aprads, offenses, can be, is a very important thing that we seek protection. And we can create this fence because this bad elephant disease, Vaishnava Pride is also called bad elephant. So if you have a nice garden, a bad elephant enters this garden, the bad elephant is going to destroy everything. So it's very important to have a very strong foundation, a strong fence. And that fence is nothing but sadhu sangha, devotee association. And we have to constantly look at anarthas, which are like the weeds right beside this Bhakti Lata. We have to take them out so that they don't take away the energy which is supposed to be directing and nourishing the Bhakti Lata in our life. This is a very important principle. And then in the 38th verse of this chapter, it is revealed, Pṛthu Mahārāja is saying the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is the ancient eternal Godhead, who is foremost amongst all great personalities, obtained the opulence of his staunch reputation, which purifies the entire universe by worshipping the lotus feet of those Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. Now he is establishing that all you citizens carry out your prescribed duties, but don't forget that you have to constantly worship the lotus feet of Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. So again, sometimes because of the powerful position, someone who's in a very opulent situation may disregard a Brahmana or Vaishnava, unknowingly committing a Vaishnava aprad or Brahma aprad, which is due to avidya, which is could be anarthas or apras. So those are the three factors that will cause somebody to act improperly, neglecting the position of a Brahmana and Vaishnava, and not knowing that these offenses will cause their ruination. So again, this is also very important. And as we sing to the Lordship, Namo Brahmanaya Devaya Go Brahmanaya Hitaya Cha Jagat Hitaya Krishnaya Govindaya Namo Namaha. So this verse appears in Vishnu Puran 1, 1965. So Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the prime protector of Brahmanical culture and the cow. So without knowing and respecting this, one cannot realize the science of God. So again, this has been revealed. And the Lord Himself says in Bhagavad Gita, Yad yad acharati sheshas tatta devetarojana. So Pṛthu Mahārāja, by his own example, he is showing that as example he is setting, his citizens should follow. So this is where, as an important person acts, general populace follows, right? So even the Vaishnava Acharyas, they reveal, as Srila Prabhupada reveals in this particular chapter, like Narottam Das Thakur. Srila Narottam Das Thakur, he sings, Chadiya Vaishnava Seva Nistara Paye Chekeba, which means that unless one serves the Vaishnavas and Brahmanas, one cannot get liberation from the material clutches. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur also sings, in Guru Ashtaka prayers, Yasya Prasadat Bhagavad Prasada. By satisfying the senses of the spiritual master, one can satisfy the senses of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So thus, this behavior is not only mentioned in scriptures, but also shown as followed by the Acharyas. Pṛthu Mahārāja is advising his citizens to follow the exemplary behavior of the Lord Himself, and thus engage in the service of Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. And Vaishnava is automatically a Brahman. So Pṛthu Mahārāja is revealing the importance of the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas in the society, and one can clear the dirt from his heart just by rendering service. So again, Vaishnava Seva has been glorified here, and thus enjoy supreme peace and liberation from material attachment and be satisfied. So in this world, there is no fruitive activity superior to serving the Brahmana class. So even if people are looking for fruitive activities, he's showing that none of them are, superior to serving the Brahmanas class, the Vaishnavas. And for this can bring pleasure to the demigods for whom the many sacrifices are recommended. So even Srila Prabhupada reveals that Narottam Das Thakur, he is constantly singing Tandera Charana Sevi Bhakta Sanevas Janame Janame Hoye Ei Abhilash. Birth after birth, I desire to serve the lotus feet of the Acharyas and live in the society of devotees. So again, those three principles as established by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are being called out again and again in disciplic succession by various Acharyas. Vaishnava Seva, Sadhu Sangha, right? And Namaruchi. Vaishnava Seva, Jiva Daya and Namaruchi. So these three essential principles, and of them, the foremost is Vaishnava Seva, because by that we get other two capabilities, our attraction towards the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and to the chanting of the holy name Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And now he is revealing something very amazing. He is saying that although the Supreme Personality of Godhead Ananta, he eats through the fire sacrifices offered in the name of the different demigods. He does not take as much pleasure in eating through fire as he does in accepting offerings through the mouths of learned sages and devotees. For then he does not leave the association of devotees. So again, there are two types of fires, where oblations can be made. Either in a fire sacrifice in a Havan Kund, right? Or, there is also fire in the stomach of Brahmanas. So when we, greet Brahmanas, when we offer them various kind of prasadams that have been offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord is much more pleased and He blesses us more when we serve the Vaishnavas, when we feed the Brahmanas, that is like feeding the Supreme Personality of Godhead directly. So to feed the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas is to feed the Supreme Personality of Godhead directly, is a very clear statement by Srila Prabhupada. And a vivid example in this principle in action is given by Advaita Acharya Prabhu. What had happened was Advaita Acharya Prabhu, he would regard Haridas Thakur, Namacharya Haridas Thakur, very well, and who would stay at his home. So when he was performing the Shah ceremony for his father, the first plate offering is given to the most exalted Brahmana. And Haridas Thakur was born in a Muslim family. He was questioning Advaita Acharya when Advaita Acharya was offering him that plate. He was like, won't you be outcasted by all the Brahmanas? Because I am born in a Muslim family. So this is the humility of Haridas Thakur. Yet, Advaita Acharya Prabhu, he's offering, while offering him, he said that he was feeding millions of first-class Brahmanas by offering the food to Haridas Thakur. So a very clear example has been given here, where when a devotional service is performed, when Vaishnava Seva is performed, it is irrespective of one's faith or in the faith that they have taken birth, rather by one's action, guna karma vibhagasha. So again, by one's actions and engagement in devotional service really empowers one to be honored in a specific manner. So in Brahmanical culture, Brahman's translated position is eternally maintained because the injunction of the Vedas are accepted with faith, austerity, spiritual conclusions, full sense and mind control and meditation. So in this way, the real goal of life is illuminated, just as one's face is fully reflected in clear mirror. So here, it is auspiciousness has been identified, and Srila Sridhar Swami, he quotes to do what is good and to reject what is not good is also called mangal or auspicious. So again, we also know this from the first two limbs of surrender. Anukulyasya sankalpa pratikulyasya vajanam rakshishati vishwaso gopatitve varnam tata atma nikshepa karpane sadvita sharanagati. To accept what is favorable, anukulyasya sankalpa, what is favorable for one's devotional service, pratikulyasya vajanam, to reject what is unfavorable for one's devotional service. So these two principles are also there. Rakshishati vishwaso, having firm faith that Lord will give us protection. Gopatitva varnam tata, that Lord will maintain us. Again, He is the maintainer. And even from the Guna Tattva's perspective, right? Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, Lord Vishnu is the maintainer. And Atma Nikshepa, surrendering everything for Lord's pleasure. Karpani, in a humble state of mind. So these six are the limbs of Shadvida Sharanagati, are the limbs of surrender. Sharanagati. Okay. So here, Pṛthu Mahārāja, he is asking for all the gathered sages, all the Brahmanas and all his citizens to bless him. And that he is saying that I would carry on my crown the dust of the lotus feet of such Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. So not just honoring them, not just serving them, but also accepting the dust from the feet, the lotus feet of such Brahmanas is being carried out by Pṛthu Mahārāja himself until the end of my life, he is revealing, right? And it reveals what is the blessing, because such dust relieves one of all the reactions which arise from sinful life. That does not mean you put the dust and you engage in sinful life. Rather, you give up sinful life and develop all good and desirable qualities. That's another blessing of accepting such dust from the lotus feet of Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. And so when he, in this way, revealed all the gathered persons in this gathering, all the audience that he is addressing, they all, glorified, they congratulated him by saying the word sadhu, sadhu, right? So this is called sadhuvad. And this is, yes, glorious, this is glorious. And at that time, the sages and the Brahmanas, they revealed that Pṛthu Mahārāja, who have appeared from the body of King Vena, who was, the grandson of, sin. So in this way, it's just being said metaphorically. So here, King Vena was very sinful personality, but now, because of Pṛthu Mahārāja, by his wonderful character and his behavior, even King Vena has been liberated. He is returning back home, back to Godhead, just like Hiranyakashipu was liberated, he was delivered because of Prahlad Maharaj. And the example is given where the 21 generations, 7 generations before, 7 generations after, and 7 links in generation at the same level are delivered when a devotee appears. So a devotee's 21 generations are delivered, are liberated from this material life. That does not mean that the devotee is engaging and the relative is engaging all kind of sinful activities, but the effect of the devotee would also purify the hearts of all the future generations and all the current generations. So here, Putra, right? Putra means one who delivers the father from a hell named Put. Yet at the same time, a devotee Putra, right? A devotee's son can deliver the past 7 generations from the material life, not just from a hellish condition, but from this whole material universe, can enable the ancestors to go back home, back to Godhead. So this is very important lesson has been given here, and Pṛthu Mahārāja, he is being glorified by the sages, by the Brahmanas, that your reputation is the purest of all, for you are preaching the glories of the most glorified of all. And who's that person, the most glorious person? You're right, means again, it is none other than Lord Shri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is also referred to as Lord of the Brahmanas. And when we are saying Namo Brahmana Devaya, Go Brahmana Hitaya Cha. So again, Lord is also always looking for the benefit of the Brahmanas and of the cows. So these two classes, the Brahmanas, the Vaishnavas, they should always be respected. They should always be served with great humility, with gratitude. And at the same time, the cows should be very well taken care, because they are also referred to as mothers. And Brahmanas are the spiritual masters for the society. So here, in one of the verses, the citizens of Pṛthu Mahārāja, they are protected from all. They were protected from all aspects by the perfect king, because he was not just engaging them in a specific manner, but also enabling them. So the devotee, by development of pure love of Krishna, constantly sees the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is known as Shyama Suddha, within his heart. So this smaran, Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam Padasevanam. So again, Smaranam. So this is very important. And a devotee, with the development of pure love of Godhead, can constantly say, and this is the perfection stage of Brahmanical culture, which simply starts with the chanting of the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So just by following the instruction of Pṛthu Mahārāja, all the citizens got perfect protection in all aspects. We can similarly follow the instructions of Pṛthu Mahārāja and be protected from all the aspects and perfect our life. That is an important lesson that we hear in this particular chapter. Hare Krishna. At this time, I would like to pay gratitude to various viewers who have been with us. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna Karuna Sindhu Prabhu, thank you for joining us. Vivek Patel ji, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna Dipali Avasti Mata ji, Hare Krishna. Vishwajit Ghosh ji, Hare Krishna. Shobhit Kumar ji, Hare Krishna Kartik Bispas ji, Hare Krishna. Vijay Roy ji, Hare Krishna. Anupama Basak Mata ji, Hare Krishna. Dolly Mata ji, Hare Krishna. Raj Jaiswal ji, Hare Krishna. Sheetal Bhavsar Mata ji, Hare Krishna. All the wonderful devotees who joined us in today's class. Please remember that we have to constantly engage in devotional service to get all protection, and the process is very simple. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Starts with the Nam Ruchi and of course Vaishnava Seva and Jiva Daya. So those 3 principles are essential principles. With this, the class ends today. Kantra SRIMADBHAGAVATAM ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Bhagavad ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Nitai Go Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna. Om Tat Sat.